Hello, Pauline.
Hi, Laura.
Hello. So welcome to our next podcast on the topic of saying yes to the opportunity. And it's something that is very important, a very important topic to me. And I think something that we both have plenty of stories to share with listeners today around the amount of times this has happened to us in our career. And just generally in life, there is always going to be examples of times of where you are underqualified or you don't know what you're doing and something presents itself and it's going to feel very scary to say yes, but you kind of just need to do it anyway. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, women and how we find this particularly hard to do. And interesting, I was reading the Sheryl Steinberg's Lean In, and she was talking about, girls outperforming boys in school, girls outperforming boys at university. They kind of get to a certain point and then we have this huge disconnect in terms of the amount of men who are in senior positions and in leadership roles in comparison to women. And we know that we're getting to a better place and we're probably the best it's ever been. But are we in a position where those academic records are translating into the real world? And there's a million reasons behind that. And definitely part of that conversation is around unconscious bias. And definitely it is around the fact that at the very same time that we have got to invest in our careers, we also need to think about our biological clocks. We've talked about this before. But I think outside of all of that, and that stuff is definitely, there's ways around that now. One of the big things that worries me is that we are not saying yes enough to the opportunities when they present themselves. And if you look at career progression and if you look at any progression, you have to be able to, advocate for yourselves and take risks. Yeah. And a lot of the time that doesn't feel comfortable. It is stepping outside your comfort zone. And I think, there's so many incidences where we are brave. There's so many situations where women will react with absolute bravery to situations and are some of the most resilient humans on the planet. But do we initiate? Do we go and step into the unknown? Do we see an opportunity, identify it and go, absolutely, I will do this? And an example of this was, I was asked by someone last week, and I'm someone who's always stepping out my comfort zone and taking risks. I have no issue with it whatsoever. But last week I found myself, someone asked me if I could speak at an event and MC the event. And instantly I was like, well, who have you asked that said no? Why the hell are you asking me?
Oh, God.
No, instantly that was my reaction.
Your first reaction.
And it was like, no, we want you. And I thought, oh, okay. And they said, how confident would you be to do it? And I'm like, well, I wouldn't say no if you asked me. And I kind of after the conversation was like, well, who was that person? Because that's not who I am. But it was a bit scary.
Which shows that doubt and that fear comes with everyone.
Yeah, it does.
Because you are naturally, yes, definitely a person's more comfortable with taking risk. Mm-hmm. I'm not as comfortable taking risk. I'm more of a calculated risk taker, but I do take risk eventually. I think a lot of us, that is how we're feeling when we face even simpler things, let alone being asked to do a, MC off an actual conference or a speaking event. That is a little bit more. Can you imagine the people who really are not taking risks? That would be so uncomfortable.
No, I know.
But how you asked that question was really interesting, because I find in taking risks, it's okay, if I get pressured into a situation and someone forces me to do it, it's easier for me to make the decision.
Right. I literally said this to Isaac, who asked me the question. I said, I feel like the very fact that you've asked me this question 2 months out, I wish you hadn't. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I'd really preferred that on the night I'd have been there and you'd have come up to me and thrust a microphone in my face and said, can you just get up there, please?
Oh, because it's, yeah.
And I'd have gone, okay.
Sure.
I'd have been a bit scared, but I'd have been fine. It was actually the fact that I had to make the decision
to do it.
Yes. And I think that is where we struggle.
Yes. I totally agree. I have the same situation in so many things, in so many simpler topics or challenges in life, like having the decision to say, am I going to do this in my job today?
Yep.
Or do I feel comfortable to take a risk on this? Or things that are so simple, sometimes we're so indecisive about just choosing something on the menu.
Oh, yeah.
Like life is just so, unfortunately, I think with so many decisions that we have on our plate, I actually think it's harder for women to make decisions on the very tough things or the very things that are more personal to them. So them being put on the stage or them being having to make something for their own cause or their own purpose.
It's fear of rejection or fear of failure.
Yes.
And I think that is something that we have to get better at as individuals, as humans, but certainly as women, because men do it very well. Men are naturally less risk averse.
Why are they like that?
I don't know. I think that it's a confidence thing. It's an inner confidence thing.
Yeah.
And it is I don't know. You know, there's a lot of examples I've seen in the corporate world where people have gone, yep, absolutely, I will do that. I mean, there's plenty of studies that have shown when, you know, job adverts and women, if they haven't got 20% of what's on that job description, they just won't even click apply.
Whereas a male would.
Yes. And even ambition around being in a management role or even verbally communicating that they are ambitious and want to go into a
I feel
role.
very uncomfortable to say that. When I actually pride myself in saying I'm not ambitious. I'm pretty sure I've said it on here a couple of times. I'm not ambitious.
Isn't that interesting?
Do I even know what that means? Ambitious, I have a negative view of. So I probably think, ambitious, they're a bragger. And there's interesting because there's a survey that was issued out for 2,000 people. CGU Insurance did it, and they said 1,000 of those people were business owners or founders of something, and they basically said that 7 of the 10 people do not feel comfortable to say that they're ambitious for a fear of looking like they are a bragger.
Wow.
So I'm one of those.
Wow.
And I thought that was like, that's really eye-opening that we have to feel so threatened or uncomfortable to say, hey, actually, I'm going to take the bull by the horns and I'm going to go and do this. 88% of those same people surveyed actually are ambitious or consider themselves ambitious.
But just scared of saying it out loud.
And it was about the fear of failure.
Wow.
The fear of failure, fear of rejection. When I boil it down, I was of being judged. Yeah. And then if you have a fear of being judged, is it because your ego, the fear of your ego being hurt, being rejected? I think a little bit it is, to be named and shamed if you haven't succeeded in something that you took a risk on. Yep. It's a really real thing and it's really difficult.
I think I'm probably the least risk averse person I know.
Yeah.
I have no problem in taking risks whatsoever. To be honest, I just find it really exciting. But part of me is that all the time I feel like I shouldn't even be here anyway.
That's called the impostor syndrome.
Yeah, no, I know. But I've kind of used it to my benefit because I just think, oh, well, sod it,
But I think that's what everyone feels like. That is the imposter. We all feel like we're not right to be in this position. Oh, I'm not worthy. But actually you are. You're actually doing it. You actually are worthy. You are capable.
But I think, I know. And that's something that has built over time. But I am actually quite glad that I don't have any level of entitlement in my body whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I always think that, if you want something, you got to go and work really hard to go and get it. And I like to be held 100% accountable. I'm not someone that makes excuses as to why they haven't done something. I kind of own it completely if I haven't.
Yeah.
Which is why I think I'm not risk averse, because if the risk involves me backing myself to do something, I have no doubt in my mind that I will do it. It's almost like if it's down to me, I mean, I can't change the weather, I can't change other people. But if it's something to do with me, like backing myself, so for example, I quit my job in 2014, left the country and me and my now husband, we went traveling all over the world, and we didn't have a huge amount of money in the bank, but I knew that we could get a certain amount of kind of tours and opportunities to get paid and do things for free, because that
is a very uncomfortable, unstable situation.
Well, it was.
So that's definitely a really good example.
Well, my husband was amazing at photography at the time, and I remember we having a conversation with quite a large global travel company that said, well, can you do video? And I was like, yeah, we can do video. He'd never done video in his life. But it was just, it was the fact that the camera could shoot video, and I completely backed him to learn it and do it. And I thought, well, why not? Why can't we do that? And I also backed myself when I got on that plane with no ticket to get back and not that much money in the bank account, that I would be able to find and drum up enough business to keep us going and pay for all the things that we wanted to do. And we did.
That's amazing. So tell us, let's break it down. Tell us where that courage came from.
I think because every time I enjoy stepping out my comfort zone, I get bored really easy. And it might just be the tiniest step out. But what happens is every single time I do that, I get braver, and then a little bit more braver, and then a little bit more braver.
Okay.
And then you start to prove to yourself that you can do these things that you never thought were possible.
So do you think this is a pattern you've created?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
And I also hate the fact that when I've been sat in my comfort zone for too long as well. So recently I've moved out of the role that I was in.
That's quite a big change.
Completely new position, and I basically created my own job. And I'm the first to say that 95% of the time I have no clue what I'm doing, but I back myself on the fact that I know how to learn skills, and I've got an amazing network of people around me, and know how to build a network of people, and that is probably 80% of this role.
Yeah.
So I know I'll be able to do it.
And so, that's a funny thing, because obviously I know you through our work life as well as what we're doing now. And I think when I heard that you had changed your role, which is being in a stable, secure, very well-performing role that you were doing in managing the human capital of the corporate world, I found, and then you went into support startups, I was like, actually, I could actually see her doing that very clearly, and I think she's very capable. But see what you just said then, you actually said, I wasn't sure if I could do everything, but I can learn.
Yeah.
So that's the risk. But from an outsider's perspective, I looked at Laura and I said, I know Laura can do that, and I think she's capable. I didn't think you would think that you'd have to learn this other component. So isn't that interesting? Because I find that is one of my biggest struggles. I over-polarize what I think I'm capable of.
Oh, okay.
Or not capable of.
Yeah.
So I measure myself by my weakness, not by my strength. So it's easy, and this is again back to more that tall poppy syndrome, and for us to get doubt, and doubt creeps in. I find that when I'm making a really difficult decision, or it may be simple for someone else if they were looking at me outside in.
Yep.
And they might think, that's a no-brainer, Pauline should just do that. But for me, I'm like, yep, no, I don't think I can do that. No, because I've done my, 10-point checklist of what I'm capable of and what I've done so far. And I've over-criticized, over-polarized all my weaknesses, and then I don't make the decision. So I myself know that feeling of where you're sitting there and you're over-critiquing what you really can or can't do. But and it's normally false.
It is, and that's it. What are the consequences of that, though?
Yes.
What has that been for you? Because this is going back to the whole issue of this, that why it's so important that we must say yes, even when we feel like we can't, is because what happens when you do step out your comfort zone, and the good examples there around bravery, and it allows you to keep furthering your career. I mean, in 2 years, I doubled my salary post that whole trip going overseas. And that was because, I don't know, I just backed myself more. Every time you step out and you keep getting more brave and brave and brave.
But is it following your gut as well? So it's on the path you're meant to be.
Yeah, it is.
So it just opens
speeds it up. It does. And you start to identify opportunities as well. Yeah. But if you do what you've just started to tell me what you've done, which makes me crazy, and not take the risk, what has been the consequences of that?
So I'll give you exactly what has happened, because I've had to dissect this myself, because sometimes I scare myself a bit and I go, oh shit, did I just make that decision? Oh my God, where am I?
Yeah.
Because I'm on the other side of the decision now. So I think, oh God, am I really capable of continuing on? And I'm always critiquing myself, and that's just I don't know, something built in there. But what I have found is, if I have not taken the risk, so I had a wonderful career in a company where I could have gone places, but I really was not happy at all. I resigned from the job, and unfortunately they convinced me to stay. Fortunately, unfortunately, I guess, because I wouldn't have had this learning now with hindsight.
Yep.
But I stayed. I was even more miserable, to the point that I was killing myself for an extra 4 months, and then I ended up resigning again. What did I lose in that 4 months? Well, I put my marriage under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Right? Because I was staying in a job where I was miserable and I was working like a dog. I could have lost my marriage. So I really was walking that fine line. So I eventually quit, and I walked in there knowing that I was going to quit, and nothing they said could have convinced me otherwise. But that was out of a necessity and a desperation, rather than a planned.
Yes.
I would say planned or feeling of sanity or strategic positioning.
You were reacting.
I was reacting.
Yeah.
So for me, I think what I could have lost was quite large. The consequence could have been quite big if I didn't take the risk and I didn't quit. Part of me is like, I should have actually quit earlier in the first time, and I should have held my ground.
Yeah.
But I was convinced to stay. And then, I fast forward, that was a while ago. Now I fast forward to what I'm doing now in doing a startup. I'm still in the corporate world doing my day job, but I'm building a startup on the side. It took me 3 months to make the decision to do a startup. And I feel like right now it's been such a long time, and I've been working on this startup, and it's gone live with Android at the moment. It's a personal assistant app, and it came out of my own need to manage myself, to manage my life and balance it all out. And what I was going through to make that decision to do that was not clear. I had no idea that this was going to be something that I actually eventually did. I had no idea at the time, when I was thinking, wow, I need an app to help me manage my life. Where is it? So I researched it. There was no clear path for me at the time when I'm in it. When I look at it now, to go, you're going to start a business and it's going to be this and it's going to look like this. And you're going to have all the feelings and the gut instincts to go, yes, this is the right decision. None of that happened. I have felt uncomfortable the whole way through. But when I made the decision to do it, what was comfortable was that I felt a little bit of my gut feel relief.
Yep.
That sounds terrible. I felt like there was something going, yes, there's that feeling of, ooh, I think this is the right thing to do.
Put yourself in the driver's seat of your own
destiny.
Life.
Yeah. And I was like, no, this is the right thing to do, because it's going to make me happier.
Yep. So I think 2 things from that would be, number one, I think we are both people who do say yes, while we're slightly
different in our way.
Different way we do it. We do both say yes to the opportunity, and we do both recognize and listen to our guts, which is incredibly important. I think I get there maybe a little bit faster, because of the fact that I don't know. I'm a very quick decision maker, and I think I have very low tolerance for anything that doesn't. As soon as my gut starts telling me to go the other way,
you act.
Yeah, that's how I have constantly got to be in the driving seat of my own life. I don't like to react. I'm always initiating, and that it's almost like a defense mechanism for me.
Yeah.
And it's proved me well. So I'm always the person driving the change, always.
Yeah.
But I think regardless of how you get there, we are still saying yes to the opportunity.
That's it.
And it doesn't matter if it takes you longer to get there. The last thing that you want to do is end up waking up one day thinking, at what point what did I lose? Yeah. And at what point how did I end up here? Yeah. At what point did I not take an opportunity, or did I say no, or was so blind to the opportunities coming my way because I just didn't want to see them and didn't want to feel uncomfortable? Because you hit the nail on the head. You have to when you're stepping out your comfort zone, by very definition, you are uncomfortable.
Yes.
You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Correct.
And the second you are in your comfort zone too long, you are not learning, you are not developing, and you're just stuck in one spot.
Yeah.
And I think this is so, we've got a podcast that we're going to be doing soon around what you tell your 20-year-old self.
Yeah.
And
Can't wait.
I feel like every young woman, young man, just young person out there, like, you don't have time to mess around, and your life is also it's gonna go so quick.
Yes.
And while you've got the opportunity, take it and look out for it.
And I think some of the practical things we need to consider is that you are sometimes going to make a decision that's going to blow up in your face and it's going to fail.
Oh, it's fine.
But but a lot of people aren't fine with that.
No.
It's how do you actually react to it? So sometimes if you're struggling to make that decision to make a change in your life, you sometimes have to think, okay, what are the scenarios this can go down? I can either go down this path and there is consequence, A, or consequence B, or consequence C. If any of those happened, am I okay with that? Can I deal with that consequence? Can I recover? If it is not a live or die situation, we need to if you do that logic and if you do those steps, I find sometimes that will make you feel a lot more comfortable to take the step out. Because that's sometimes I find people actually get stuck on the idea, they haven't thought through the idea and the potential outcome.
Yeah.
And if you do that, play that game, sit down, grab a coffee, sit down, have some peace, work through, okay, if I take this step and this goes this way, can I deal with that?
Yep. What's the worst thing that could happen?
What's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Yeah.
And if that is something that you can recover on, do it. Don't waste your time. But I think that's the part where people get stuck on just the idea and haven't actually thought through, okay, can I live with the consequence? Yes, I can. Let's take a risk. Am I going to think about this in 12 months' time and regret it? Probably. But if I do it and fall down a little bit and have to adapt or change what I'm doing while I'm doing it, can I live with that? Yeah, I think I can.
So Seth, it's funny. So Seth Godin, his book, Tribes, which I love, he talks about the easiest thing is to react. The second easiest thing is to respond, but the hardest thing is to initiate.
I love that.
So I think what we can fall into the trap of doing sometimes is to wait until we have to react, i.e. your marriage is about to break down. You are about to die because you're so burnt out from a job. And then it's easier to go, well, I have to leave now. I have to leave. It's out my hands.
It's easier.
Yeah. It's easier. It's my decision is made. So and I guess, I talk about when I left my job in 2014, the decision was kind of made for me at that point when I think about it, because I was incredibly burnt out. And it had to be done. It just had to be done. But what the consequences were, or say consequences got probably negative connotations, but the amazing things that came out of it was that I developed so much as a human. I got to go all around the world. I got to take risks. I got to have fun, figure out who I was again.
Yeah.
And when I think back about the change that was forced upon me to go and make, it was all for the better. And it really did push me and got me over my anxiety problems. And when you do hit bottom, or when things go wrong, and when you do fail, right, and when life just throws shit at you,
yes,
what you tend to find is within 12 months you are so grateful for it. You're so grateful because you actually learned the most that you could.
Well, they say pain has purpose, right?
It does. So really, if you like you said, if you can sit there and think about what is the best thing that can happen if I make this decision, how great will that feel? Yeah. And what is the worst thing that can happen? And can I get over that? And the reality is that there's not a lot that we can't get over.
Oh,
the resilient people in the world who have overcome,
especially where we are. Really, we're in one of the most. We're in a. In Australia, we have the opportunities knocking at our door. We're in the middle of a women's movement, touching every part of the planet. And we have so much opportunity.
Yeah, we do. Low unemployment. You know what? If you and everybody is, you've got a roof over your head. You've got your family around you. You will figure it out. You're not going to die.
Yes, and that's how blessed we are. So being able to take the risk in this time that we have is so important.
Yeah.
And measuring that is, although quite difficult to get into that habit, once you've done it a few times like you did, you create that new pattern. And then taking a risk or making those decisions for yourself, not just for others, becomes a lot easier.
So, I mean, in terms of that, saying yes to the opportunities, I think part of it is stepping out your comfort zone. It's definitely ignoring your fear of failure, or not ignoring it, but going, okay, actually embracing it head on and trying to logically work through the steps. But the other part is actually seeing the opportunity. So opening your eyes to opportunities and trying to look at things through a different lens. So we had a conversation about the Mr. Teflons of the world in our last podcast. And, you know, talking about how hard that is from working for a Mr. Teflon, okay, and having somebody who is, you know, scooting on through and not necessarily taking full ownership of their tasks and what they need to do and the impact that then has on other people around them.
Yes.
But like I said to a friend not long ago who was having some issues with lack of direction from her manager, when you don't have that, you can either sit and complain about it or you can absolutely embrace it and see this opportunity to step up. And it's a different lens of seeing the world. So if you are in a really rubbish situation and you do feel like things are getting hard, I would encourage everybody to say, okay, but what have I got to gain from this? What lesson can I learn?
Yeah.
What opportunity is this presenting itself? Because there always is one. And I think that's it. Not just saying yes when one so obviously, you know, comes to you, like when Isaac asked me if I wanted to go and MC this conference. Yeah. That's an obvious opportunity.
But taking the lead.
But going and trying to find them. And
it's a bit of accountability then, right?
Yeah, it is.
So it's a bit of accountability for our own actions. When you're dealt with a shit situation, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And even before you get dealt with that shit situation is actually recognizing the opportunity before it happens and taking the lead on it. So I think with a lot of the people can't probably even get out of their day-to-day busy world that they're living in to even plan a little bit more ahead in what is their opportunity or what they're doing right now, because some people are just pedaling really fast and they've got a lot going on. I think as women, we definitely have taken that matriarchal role of doing everything in the household, doing everything at work. We don't take the risk because we're too busy doing everything for a lot of other people.
Yeah, we do. And I think, but the other part of that, though, is that and I'm probably going to be quite controversial here, what bothers me, okay, is that we are in 2019. It is the best time alive to be a woman with the opportunities that are endless. Yes, there's a long way to go. But, okay, let's just say in a perfect world, we wake up tomorrow and pay disparity doesn't exist. Okay, we wake up tomorrow and unconscious bias doesn't exist. We wake up tomorrow and all of our husbands are doing 50% of the housework and helping us raise those kids. Okay, would there be 50% women in the senior roles, in the top roles in the world? Would there be 50% women and 50% men? No. And I genuinely believe that. And I think it's because even if you take out all of the external things that make it hard for us, there's something intrinsic in us that we have to change, which is our ability to actually step in to the unknown and to say yes to the opportunity. That it honestly is my belief.
I really cannot agree with you more. That is definitely a part of our DNA. It's a part of who we are. It's our makeup.
It's a doubt.
It's the doubt.
Am I brave enough to do this on my own? Do you know that there's only, in Australia, there's only 22.5% of founders are women?
That's sad.
So, and you can't tell me that there's only...
But it was probably worse before. But yes, that is still sad.
But you can't tell me that there's no entrepreneurial women out there.
I know.
But one of the things is that they to be an entrepreneur, you have to be incredibly brave. Even if you have an idea, it's not even about the idea. It's actually about your willingness to be able to go and ask for money to build that idea, or to go and work outside of office hours to build the idea. Do what you do, stay up till silly o'clock in the morning while you're doing beta testing and speaking to your offshore team and wherever they are. Like, you know, that requires stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
It also requires that at one point you are going to have to launch that and stand there and say, I built this. This is all me. Do you like it, world?
Yes.
And people don't like
that's
to do that.
very scary.
It is. But this is the problem. I mean, we've got to stop looking at it as scary, and we have to start getting really brave, because I look at that stat around the amount of entrepreneurs, and I just think, you cannot tell me that 75% of the best ideas come from men. I don't know what the stats are. I don't know, but at least it should be 50-50.
Yes, or more, given how creative they are. Eleanor Roosevelt says, if women are like a tea bag, if you put them in hot water, see what happens to them. Like, and I believe that is so true. We just don't exercise it enough because we wait until we're put in hot water.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting as well, actually, on that entrepreneurial stat is that statistically, women who are on, so businesses with women on boards or businesses with women in C-suite perform better. Fact.
Say that again.
So businesses, corporate organizations with women on boards or women in C-suite perform better than those that don't. So gender diversity in the world is a great thing for performance, and it's just different skill sets. It's different ways of doing things. It's different. It's just, we need diversity.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, if we are good leaders and we do have the skills, and, you know, the young children the girls are cleverer than the boys at school, not all the time, but across the world, that is a global trend. And why is it that there's only 22% of Australian founders are women? And it's actually nothing to do with the idea that they may have in their head. It's probably nothing to do with, whether they could build a business. Yeah, they probably could, but are they stepping out there? Are they standing up and going, right, there's an opportunity here for me to go and pitch for investment to get my idea off the ground, or there's an opportunity for me here to solve a problem and I think I've got the solution. But are they brave enough to go and do that?
This is what I reckon it is, and that's purely from my own experience. So when I was making the decision to do a startup, I had to weigh up the pros and cons of that, which I did, of course. And I went through this methodical approach and I asked quite a few people in my home life. So I asked my husband, is he comfortable if I do that? Now I had to weigh up, do I quit my job and do I go do that? What happens to the household? Will I have time to do that? So these are all the practical things that basically one-on-one, if I wasn't able to work through those, doubt sets in.
Yep.
And doubt is like shackles.
Oh, God.
Doubt kills more dreams than anything.
It really does.
You know, and actually doubt kills more dreams than failure does. Because failure, you can actually know you've tried that step. That didn't work. You can go to step 2.
Learn. It does. You
can go to step 3. There's always way to pivot from something you've gone down a path and change your direction and readapt. So dreams are actually killed more from the doubt that we have.
Because you don't even start them.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it just, time is lost. So for me, I think I was really thinking that, and I had a tough time. I was looking for signs in the universe.
Oh, God.
So I did get a sign because I'm an owl believer. So my whole thing is, my whole logo is an owl. But I see owls everywhere, and it always seems to come up when I'm actually in that sort of crossroads of trying to make difficult personal decisions.
Okay.
If I have to make decisions about anything else, really tough.
Yep.
Money, work, IT, big decisions, or business big decisions, fine, I'm really good at it. But something about me personally, putting myself out there so I can look like a reject if I fail, that was like, oh my God. So all of these demons crept up. If I didn't have the people around me to encourage me and push me along the way, I literally had my sister-in-law who used to actually say, just do it. Can you just do it? She's not even in the IT industry. She doesn't do anything with technology. She's a teacher and a personal trainer. And when she was training me, trying to force me to do exercise, which was great, but not great. She used to sit there going, have you done that yet? She'd ask me week on week. She was like a broken record, but it actually got me off my ass. And then I started to do it. I needed that cheerleader. I needed the tribe around me to encourage me, because my doubt could have been like paralysis. So for me, it took a lot to make that decision, and doubt really easily could have killed me. And I'm actually quite a strong person, and people have the perception that I'm a strong person, but I'm a very I internalize a lot, and I critique a lot, and I'm very self-aware.
And I'm exactly the same. I think I ask permission.
Ask permission.
You do, and you do it, and it's so when you're doing it, you don't even realize you're doing it.
But I think what's important is, who do you ask permission from?
Yeah.
So I have found that if you have to ask permission, I think women do need that community and the tribe. We've talked about that before. You do need that, because you need a good sounding board of people to give you that confidence when you don't have it. And if you need to do that in order to make your decision, number one, be careful of who that tribe is and who's giving you direction or giving you encouragement, because sometimes it can go the wrong way. But most importantly, your gut should be the loudest sound you hear.
Yeah. And
I think that was, my gut was telling me, you have no choice, Pauline, you have to do this.
Yeah.
There is nothing telling you otherwise, so now just take the first step.
Yeah.
And that's what I ended up doing. But that was really difficult. And that process to go through, like I said, took me 3 months. Then I went and actually started researching companies I could work with, like a development team and things like that, and started laying down the foundations and the next steps. But I really had no idea. I'm used to working in the corporate world. I'm used to working for big companies where I have staff who know what they're doing. I know my job. They know their job. We all work together as a team. We're a force to be reckoned with. When you're on your own and you're making a decision for a personal thing, it's incredibly lonely. Yeah. So trying to work out what your right next step is, it was very discouraging. And there could have been many points in this last 12 months that I could have said, oh my God, too hard.
Yeah.
Stop. But it's then perseverance. So I would have to say you kind of got to recognize when you're in that sort of Debbie Downer, doubtful sort of
and have
motion.
Have a cheerleader. But it'll also have people who've been on that journey before you.
Yes.
To talk to. So, for example, when I started this role that I'm in, and it's not my business, but it certainly is, I'm building that business from the ground up. And you were one of the first people that I called week one. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, Pauline, and it's complete freedom that I've never felt before, and I don't even know where to begin.
Yes.
And what happened with me, which I'm always craving freedom, it's part of who I am.
Yeah.
But I had almost too much of it in that, and what it was, and
You're starting with a blank page.
Yes. And it's what do I, and having been in a role previously where I could measure how well I was doing based on the bottom line for that office. So I'm managing a team of people. How are they performing? What is the bottom line? I'm in charge of the P&L. It's black and it's white and it's done. And if it's going, the numbers are going up month on month, I'm doing a good job. That's the validation. There kind of isn't when you're doing something on your own, which is new. It is, and it gives you this. It's very. That was the biggest out the comfort zone thing for me.
So what did you do?
Talk to you about it, and I think it's interesting that just hearing, I understand completely how you're feeling, and you're feeling like this, aren't you? Was like, yes, thank you. I'm not going insane.
Not going crazy,
And that is sometimes all you need. So I think the tribe of people, you need your cheerleader.
Yeah.
You need your accountability coach that's going to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
And catch when you're just talking and not doing anything.
Yes.
And
encourage you.
Absolutely.
Constructively encourage
and help
you.
with the self-doubt.
Yeah.
But you also need the people that have done the journey before you to walk in their footsteps. And again, you got to pick those and be quite smart about it.
Yeah.
But if you can go
and not pick too many.
No, just one or two that you can have a conversation with. And I think it is a lonely place, but it doesn't have to be. If you can, and again, this is about you saying yes to the opportunity. It's about you also creating opportunities for yourself. If anyone was to call me and say hi, and they have done, I'm about to go and embark on this journey that I have no idea what to do. I noticed that you have been a manager for X amount of time, or you have done this. Can you give me a hand with this? There's not that many people in the world that would say no to that.
Yeah, we don't do that enough.
But we don't. I do, just because I'm very demanding.
I do because I've learned.
Yeah. But there's tools you can use. If you've got a link, how many people are on LinkedIn and have got 2,000 connections and never speak to their connections?
I know.
Like, don't be a bloody connection if you're not going to say, yeah, I'll have a coffee with you and help you with that problem.
Yeah.
There's so many ways. There's networking groups.
I find that's pride, right?
Oh, I know.
I find that's pride and people not willing to take the first step. They probably don't call it pride. They don't call it ego, but having to feel vulnerable, because I think we're both quite comfortable to be vulnerable and be ourselves.
It's quite liberating, though, to be that self-aware.
Yeah, because if you really don't care what people think about you,
oh no,
it's that is liberating. If you have this thing that you, oh my God, I have to uphold this perception that everyone thinks I know what the hell I'm doing all the time, that is so much pressure. And people then never go and they never break that mold. I think you and I really don't give a shit about what people think about us.
See, I do.
Oh, I don't.
I didn't.
Well, it's just me then.
No, I do. But I have no issue. I care, and I'm quite, I would hate that I disappointed someone and all of that kind of stuff. But I also have no qualms whatsoever in standing up and saying, I have no idea what you just said. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, that's the thing. But that's that vulnerable, being able to be vulnerable.
Yeah, because for me, it's
and
about
ask for help.
It's about being the dumbest person in any given room at any one time.
Oh,
because you are learning all the time. That wasn't my quote, by the way.
That's the growth mindset.
I've read that somewhere. Yes.
That's that growth mindset.
Yes, it is. It's about making sure that you are okay with not knowing. It's making sure that you're surrounding yourself with smarter people than you, with more knowledgeable people who can open your eyes and open your horizons as much as possible.
Yes.
That's when you learn. That's when you grow.
Yeah. And I think the reality is, until you're actually in the grave, sorry to be so doom and gloom, but until you're actually in the grave, that's the point where you'll be learning till.
Yeah.
You do not know everything. We do not know everything, although we like to think, like we were just talking about how our notepads are everywhere because we don't know everything. We don't know everything, and it's okay. But I think people do think, oh, well, I know what I'm doing, so I've got it all under control. It's fine, fail. And now what? And because they're so used to leaning on themselves, and if they've failed and they kick themselves when they're actually down, they can't get up, and it takes a long time to recover from that. And that's because, we are all on our own journey just trying to do our best.
Yep.
And when you remember that everyone else is in exactly the same situation,
It's comforting.
then it's like, okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to stuff up a couple of times. I'm going to stuff up 10 million times. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's my life. I'm stuffing up my stuff. As long as I'm not putting harm on anyone else, feel like who gives a shit? So it's taking the shackles off and that sort of veil that you've got on, that you're doing everything according to the textbook. And I just think that that's liberating, like you said before. And I think we just don't do that enough because we're full of doubt in our own values and we're embarrassed. Our egos are out there.
But the thing is we're never going to do anything impactful if we don't step out of our comfort zones. I think the other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit was about saying yes. So we've obviously talked about having your eyes open, trying to actively go and identify the opportunities to say yes. Basically swallowing the doubt and just saying yes anyway, and working out that it's, you're okay, and just to do it. But also I think the other part of saying yes involves sometimes being an advocate for yourself. And when I think about the progress I've made in my career and the progress I know you've made in yours, and a lot of situations and a lot of examples of women who I've spoken to who don't think that they can go and do something, they're sat on whether they should say yes or no to maybe a promotion, or an opportunity where their boss has moved on and they know they may be asked, or they can see it there and they don't know whether to go and step into it or not. That's kind of step one. Once I've convinced them that, yeah, you should bloody go and do that. Step two is being able to advocate for themselves, which it's step two of saying yes. Once you've said yes, you've then got to go in and own it. And I think that involves even more another level of bravery.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we struggle with as women. I think, you know, even if we've got past the point where we've seen an opportunity or we've taken an opportunity, we've said yes, we then get in there and then we literally mess it up for ourselves by being too scared to promote ourselves in that situation.
Or too modest.
Yeah, way too modest. And again, I think this comes back to that unconscious bias and that whole cultural thing, which, you know, we'll start to shift out of over time. It's going to take a couple more generations too. But don't feel like you, and I certainly struggle with this, don't feel like you're tooting your own horn when you're just standing there and stating facts about what you've achieved. And don't worry about anyone judging you. And certainly don't be the woman that judges other women for doing that.
Yeah.
Because that's not how we're going to change and progress.
That's back to that thing that you were talking about earlier, when you're applying for a job. Me, when I look at job description, I make sure, yes, 100% of the criteria I've met as a woman. And it was only about 4 years ago that I was practicing. Okay, I'm just going to go for ones that I only match 50% of the criteria. Now, you were saying before the statistics is more like men will probably match 30% and still go for the job.
Yeah.
I was like 50%, oh my God, this is mortifying. But I actually got callbacks for job applications. So I think
take
it's
ourselves
that
out.
Our whole way we measure and look at ourselves is completely polarized.
Yeah.
And we're doing ourselves a disservice. So if you kind of stop and you actually stock take and you go, oh, yes, okay, I'm still polarizing because my brain is throwing me random negative thoughts about my own capability, because that's what your brain does. Your brain is there to answer questions.
Yep.
So you keep asking yourself, can I do this? Can I actually do this? Your brain is looking for facts based on your experience and your actual what you've learned, and it's answering your question quite matter of fact. It's finding all the proof points to go, you're asking a loaded question. Can I actually do this? The brain's going, no, because of X, Y, Z. No, this time happened last time. This time, and it keeps going on and on and on. The brain is wired to do that. And I know when our colleague comes on later in one of the podcasts, Dr. Diane Harner, who is absolutely brilliant in the brain, will explain this to us. But she explained it to me. Your brain fires random things.
Yep.
It was, what are we going to do with that information?
Yep.
And that's where the risk is, and that's where the doubt is, and that's where we just don't take that action, because I myself had constant brain firing. You have to kind of tell it, shut up now.
Yep.
Take the risk, apply for the job, and just go for it.
And when you get into that interview, don't sit there and apologize for the fact that you don't have 50% of what's on the job application, but actually sit and promote the fact that you do have the other 50%. And I think that is something that men will do really well and will naturally have that predisposition to go and do that.
Yeah.
And women will naturally apologize that they don't have that other 50. And when you're then sat there, and I've been in interviews with man and woman before and having very different answers to those questions. And at the end of the day, you're going to go, the most confident person gets the job.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time. It's the person that is able to demonstrate and discuss and have a conversation around what they've done, why it's applicable, what would they do when they come into the role. It's the person that is going to be able to impress the interviewer that is going to get the job, not necessarily the person that should.
Yeah.
And that drives me nuts. But that is the way the world is. And I think if you are going to say yes to an opportunity, you also need to carry that bravery into post-opportunity and making sure that once you've convinced yourself that you're good enough to go and do that you don't lose that once you're in there.
Yeah.
Because that is very damaging and can cause a lot of stress.
And it becomes evident, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You start to second guess yourself, start to doubt yourself, things start to fall apart and how you're perceived.
Well, what happens is so we have the scenario of you're sat there and you're looking at a job ad and you've got 50% of the criteria. So you apply for it because you get the bravery and you think, you've listened to this podcast, I'm going to say yes to the opportunity. You get the phone call, you think, right, I'm going to keep being brave. You go into that interview and you apologize for not having the 50% and you don't get the job. The knock-on effect of that is the next time you see a role advertised,
you won't even do it.
You won't even apply for it.
Oh, that's so true.
So you've got to maintain the bravery throughout the whole process.
So do we need to stop critiquing ourselves?
Yes, we need to stop critiquing ourselves, I think. And just also, even if you're sat here listening to this and you are somebody who does say yes to opportunities, don't critique anyone else who does or doesn't. I think it's about supporting each other, and it may be that
making that change.
Yeah, it's about even if you are sat here thinking this doesn't apply to me, but you are presented with something today, tomorrow, next week, where your sister or your mum or your friend comes out and says, "I'm thinking about doing this." Don't tell them that they shouldn't do that. Ask them why they want to do it, why is it important to them, and encourage them to take the risk.
Yeah,
because I think, you know, they might be looking for their cheerleader. They might be looking for someone to help lift them up. But it's true.
It is so true. It's actually and that's actually when people are coming as women and they're asking their opinion, should I do this? Don't be that woman how you critique yourself, you then give that on to someone else. Just go, if you feel like you want to do that and you would be unhappy if you didn't make that decision and you would regret it, do it.
Go for it. I'll be there when you fall down.
Correct.
It's fine.
Yep, exactly. That is beautiful. Tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are on people who don't feel like they're qualified to take a risk. So I'll give you a scenario.
Yep.
And it will be my own. And I have very strong views on this, so it's a bit of a loaded question. But I made a decision probably about 3 years ago to continue to do consulting, because I've been consulting for now about 4 years.
Yep.
To continue to do consulting, take a pause. It was probably 2 years ago, actually. Take a pause and do go and complete my degree, which I haven't completed. I've done 4 years part-time while I was in a very challenging job at the same time. Or do I go and do this startup? I made the decision that I could not see myself studying another textbook when I know that I've had 17 years to 18 years of experience that taught me a lot more. So I made the call not to do it, and I went with the startup. I still have a great job in the IT industry, in the business world, and a tier 1 company, global company. I have no doubts on my abilities to do anything in comparison to anyone who has completed their IT degree.
Yep.
But I couldn't do it anymore. I did 4 years. I learned I wasn't even learning. Everything that they were telling me I could learn from Google, which is sad, Dr. Google.
And I think, the education industry is getting completely spun on its head
So
now.
I just said, no, I calculated my risk like I always do. Option 1, option 2, ta-da.
Yep.
And then I just went for this. What's your thoughts on that, and what do you think?
So it's interesting. I think the only reason I would go back and study now isn't because I'd want to be qualified in something. I would do it because I love to learn. And I think if you are, for me, I went to university. Most of my friends did. And I think it was the most amazing experience in terms of creating new friendships, having to learn how to learn, and how to acquire knowledge, and how to research, and how to manage your time, and write your essays, and all of that kind of stuff. Live on your own, do your own washing, do your own cooking, manage a budget. Taught me a lot. Never used the degree, but taught me a lot.
That's the key. Never use the degree.
Yeah, but it's one of those.
But that's the life skills you learnt from it rather than the degree itself.
Yes.
So I understand that, being in that community, and that what you've got out of that in that way. I get that. Yeah,
I think from a do I have to be qualified? Do I need a degree, or do I need to go and do that course? I worked in recruitment for a long time, and people would come and sit in front of me and be like, oh, I've not got any job interviews, or I keep getting job interviews. I'm thinking I might go back and study. Do you think I need to go and get that, diploma in this? And my answer would always be the same. No. You either go and get more experience or learn how to interview better.
That's such a good tip.
Or, so there are some jobs where you do need the qualification.
Yes, if I was going to be a surgeon tomorrow, I would definitely go to university. Don't give me any knives.
Just get some experience.
Unless you want me to cook something.
But I think there's a certain, I'm going to hide behind this piece of paper and prolong the very fact that I'm getting rejected. Do you know what I mean? Like just push that out the way and just, and obviously it's because I need to do this.
Yeah.
No, it's probably not that. But I think the whole definition of qualifications and
these days is changing anyway.
It really is.
Like if we look, I actually Googled it. Obviously, we were going to talk about this, but I Googled all the successful people in the world, and Forbes had this list of about 50 people.
Yeah.
Of the 50 people they listed, there were only 3 females in there: Oprah, Coco Chanel, and Mary Kay Cosmetics, of which 2 I believe are no longer on the earth. Now, I was thinking, okay, well, where's Beyonce?
Yeah.
And where is everyone else who was a successful woman without a degree? You know, I could not understand. There were so many men. And then, okay, let's look at the powerhouse men. It was amazing to read, obviously, because I'm a tech geek.
Yeah.
So all of the IT founders of the world, the Facebooks, the Dells, the Amazons, no degrees.
Wow.
Okay, so I actually have a list. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Oprah, Anthony Robbins. Like, oh my gosh. Like, he knows humans and the brain so much, and look what he's done.
Wow.
The Wright brothers, who obviously invented the aeroplane, hadn't even finished high school.
See, but you know what you find about these entrepreneurs though, right? That they can't cope with any structure and be put in a box and told what to do anyway. Yeah. So of course they would, and the thing with entrepreneurs they are very, they love risk. They love jumping out of a plane and, you know, trying to build it on the way down and build a parachute on the way down, or whatever the phrase is. They usually look for the most efficient way possible.
Yeah.
It's a little bit about when I brought the book over here today, and I brought 3 books with me because I knew we were talking about various topics. And I'm looking at all of these books thinking, I have not read one of these cover to cover. I pick the chapters that I need, and I will then go and find the bits that I need. And entrepreneurs kind of do that with a degree.
Yeah.
They start it and then they go,
well, that's what happened with me. 4 years. So I did uni 4 years. But my pace of my job was moving so much faster. So I look at that list and I was like, you know what, I think we can't use the excuse that we're not qualified, because these days you can access qualifications so easily. We have doubt and we have brain signals coming through, firing off random thoughts to killer dreams. Okay, so we need to be conscious of that.
Yeah.
We probably need to talk about it more so that people don't feel threatened and
lonely.
A fear of failure and lonely. Seek out your tribe. So trying to work out who is that group that's going to actually give you the right levels of encouragement. But not overdoing it by asking for so many opinions and then not taking a step because you don't know which way to go. Like, there is so many things nowadays that's giving us that momentum to go and take more risk. And it doesn't have to be about work or career or jobs. It can be in everything. I find so many people don't go on holidays or don't go overseas because they're waiting for some rainy day to come along.
No, I know.
So life is just too short.
It is. It's too short. And you know, going back to when you're what you do in terms of putting the yes and the no and what's the worst that can happen and what could happen, and really, I mean, I definitely do that. I think I calculate the upside and downside really quickly. I don't write the big list and think about it for a while, but I kind of just go, gut tells me, have I got to back myself here or not? Is there any external thing that could come in and ruin this and destroy this? Will I die? Probably not. Right, let's go. That's usually how my brain works. And I think just the whole thing comes back to, if you really want to live your fullest life and reach your fullest potential, you have got to be able to say yes, see the opportunities when they come up and follow through on them. And how you do that is up to you. But you've shared some amazing tips. Thank you.
Love it. And say yes more.
Say yes more all the time.